If they go the way they're insisting on, we're headed right back out to where the first two co-eds were murdered. And I'm saying to myself, oh my God, all I got to do is relax and they'll take me to their death. I've got the gun in the car, the same one I've been doing it with. I insisted. As gently as I could, I took them where they needed to go, to their college. That was 1 week before I murdered my mother. I said, she's got to die, and I've got to die, or girls like that are going to die. And that's when I decided I'm going to murder my mother. I knew a week before she died, I was going to kill her. And she went out to a party, she got soused, she came home, went to sleep. I was woken up by that, came out, I walked up to her bed, she's laying there reading a paperback. As many thousands of nights before. And she said, oh, I suppose you're going to want to sit up all night and talk now. Shit. I looked at her, I said, no. I said, good night. And I knew I was going to kill her, you know? And I'm so cold, it's so hard. And that's the first time in 10 years I've looked at it that way. I mean, that intensely, that honestly. It hurts. Because I'm not a lizard, I'm not from under a rock. I came out of her vagina. See? I came out of my mother. And in a rage, I went right back in. For 7 years, she said, I haven't had sex with a man because of you, my murderous son. It was one of our arguments. I cut off her head, and I humiliated her corpse. I said, there, you know, a 6 young woman dead because of the way she raises her son and the way her son is raised, the way he grows up. And what's her closing words? I suppose you want to sit up all night and talk. God, I wish I had.
Your grandmother and her daughter-in-law, your mother, were two women very important in your life, and you killed them both. Could you say what they were like that led them to the same fate?
Same thing that kept them from ever being friends. They were both aggressive, matriarchal women. They'd been the daughters of strong matriarchal women. I still loved my mother, and it's hard for somebody to comprehend that you murder your mother through love. It isn't a rational process. It's a very painful process. It isn't rational, and I've got to still live with that.
Why did you wind up giving yourself up?
It had to stop. It had to stop. Once my mother was dead, there's almost a cathartic process at that point. I got physically ill right then, when she died, when I murdered her. And once she was dead, there was no way I could back out. I had backed down from giving up 1,000 times. You know, I used to get drunk and go sit out in front of the sheriff's department in a parking lot across the street on one of those old concrete parking berms, and I just sit there and say, no, I still can't. The clanging doors, I could still hear them. No, because it'll never open again. You know, so I rationalized that to give up would be insane. To give up would be crazy. I'd be giving away my freedom, and I don't need to. But I look back on that and wish I had earlier, when I was saying those things to myself. The people who were later dead wouldn't be. The regret that came later would have not had to be. Those people, not things, those people would still be with their families, with their loved ones. They would have their own families if I had had the courage to make that decision instead of painting myself into the corner.
Where might you be if you'd never given in to the impulse to murder?
Where might I be? If my parole had been successful, I believe I'd be married, I'd have children, I'd be heading toward my first grade. I'm an American, and I went off the deep end.
Ed Kemper has been serving a life sentence in this California prison since 1973. when, at the age of 24, he murdered his mother, then called police and confessed to having dismembered college co-eds for 2 years, as well as cannibalizing and raping their headless bodies.
When someone abandons himself to being a victim, he's going to have to be one.
With an IQ of 136, Kemper is now the prison's best reader of books for the blind.
I'm saying I'd wanted to kill my mother since I was 8 years old, and I'm not proud of that. It started with surrogates at a non-human level. Physical objects, my possessions, other people's, destruction of things that are cared about, and then destruction of things that are living on a lower level, small animals, insects, animals, and then finally people. It started coming to a head again, so I went back down. I ran away back down there. And then a month later, I'm up living with my grandparents in the mountains, and 10 months later, I murdered them. And it made it worse to be on top of a mountain. I was literally on top of a mountain when it happened. And I sensed everybody in the world just stopping what they were doing, turning around, saw what I did, and are coming to get me. And I knew I was paranoid at that moment. I knew anybody that came up there and gave me a funny look or a fishy eye or quizzical look, I'd have blown their brains out thinking they were coming to get me. And if it had been in a city, I would have been a mass murderer at age 15. I would have killed until they gunned me down. I wouldn't have been able to reason my way out of it. I was scared to death, and I was violent. I felt my back hit that wall. I was the rabbit that always ran, that always backed away, always burned his bridges. Suddenly there weren't any more, and my back hit that wall, and I came out screaming and kicking and shooting.
He was released to the one person that authorities at the state mental hospital recommended he never see again.
I got paroled to my mother. Atascadero decided that I didn't never need to talk to her again at all. Don't give her a Christmas present. Leave her alone. She got a pound of flesh out of you. I wasn't sniveling about my mother to them. I didn't like to hear what they had to say about her. She went through 3 husbands like a hot knife through butter. 4 months after I was out, I was back into the fantasy bag. My first date was an absolute disaster. It wasn't her fault. You know? And I didn't blame her even then. I'm saying it was a terrible tragedy, but boy, she didn't ever talk to me again. It was awful. It wasn't sexual or grabbing at her. No, I was just such a dork, taking her to a John Wayne movie and Denny's. It's terrible. I'd never been on a date. At 16, that was cool, you know. I'd never been on a date, you know. I was locked up since I was 15. But I can't tell her that. Oh, gee, you don't mind me. You know, she kind of got hung up on my looks or whatever. You know, I mean, she's a gorgeous young lady. Pure class, and she saw something there that I guess wasn't there, and boy, she found out.
I put one girl in the trunk and one in the back seat and stabbed both of them to death. Later that night, I cut both their heads off. I tied her up and suffocated her. I did have sexual relations with her before she died, but after she was unconscious. Last Saturday morning, about 5:15 a.m., I killed my mother. At approximately 7:55 that evening, I killed a friend of hers. He has the right to remain silent. Anyone who say can move if you look for the law. You understand each of your rights? Yes, sir. Could you tell us the names of the girls in question, what you did with these girls? It's going to be a while.
The rest of the family went upstairs to retire for the evening. I went to the basement, so we had an entire floor of the house between us, and it was very scary. My mother wouldn't allow me any negotiated settlement of light. I couldn't have a night light. It was too expensive. I was making a bargain with demonic forces that I was convinced were going to consume me, somehow do me in. The time was 6'7½". I weighed 173 pounds. They couldn't believe I was under 16. The judge had appointed a psychiatrist. His report was that I was mentally ill, that I was what he called, how did he put that? I was salvageable, that I should be treated and not punished. I wasn't aware of any intelligence. I was being called stupid pretty frequently, and unfortunately was sinking in. So I was very positively impressed and surprised to find out I wasn't mentally defective, literally. I thought I was a slow person.
When I picked them up, I told them I was going to Stanford, which I wasn't. The next day, I stayed home from work and went up to the Santa Cruz area. Buried one of the girls, part of her body without the head. That was the Fish girl. Then I continued on up to the Loma Prieta area, where I dragged the other body. The Chester girl to a very heavily wooded area. Deposited the body there and backtracked slightly and deposited some incriminating materials, bloody clothing and other personal items. I also deposited both of their heads. I picked her up on University Avenue in Berkeley when she told me she was going to be late for her ballet class.
Edmund Kemper, and this guy was cutting the heads off college women, college girls, rehearsing really to kill his own mommy.
Better put them on him and tear that goddamn gun belt off of you and blast you. I might beat you to death with it. So he comes over with the cuffs. He's a little offended by that. So he comes over with the cuffs. He starts to put them on my wrist, and I just went through some kind of incredible convulsion. I just yanked him clear across the bed, you know, because I was in and out and yanking like this, and he had the other hand cuffed already. He's putting a cuff on here, and I yanked him across the bed, and zing, off he goes. He's hanging onto this handcuff. And at that point, he cuffed me up real quick, finished. I already had leg irons down at the foot of the bed. And I just was yanking those rails up and down with my wrists, and that's very painful with handcuffs on. You know, these stainless steel rails, just up and down, yanking them and trying to pull them in. And we went like that for a few hours, and finally they said, we got to get him back to jail. He's not going to change in the near future.
In general, people see serial killers as one category, but there are actually 7 different types of serial killers. Would you care
Several
to...
or 7?
No, several.
Several types.
Would you care to explain us what types of different serial killers?
To be honest with you, I couldn't really tell you. Because the categorization process, as you know, is back east with the Behavioral Sciences Unit. When I was locked up originally, they called it mass murderer. Anybody who killed more than 2 or 3 people was a mass murderer.